It's not a hot day today, and it's we're nearing the equator. So those who we stand today will endure for the rest of the days. And it's my pleasure to open the session and introduce to you the ambassador of Finland to the Russian Federation, His Excellency Hannu Himanen, who's a great friend of the school, and he also serves a great expert here. He travels with us to regional seminars, and recently he took part in our I class and did a great job. So I always ask him to speak on those topics that are really key for us, and the topics that enable a country to be a winner, and that small Finland, less territories that were acquired by Russia, and we holding our seminars in those territories and invite the ambassador, such as Zelenogorsk. And it's really a pleasure for us when he comes to speak here. It's very professional, and the topic he's going to speak on is also very important. And we were talking with him and trying to figure out what had happened to that small country that performs so good and maintains excellent relations with Russia despite all historical troubles. Personally, I've never been to Helsinki. I've been to Finland once, but not to Helsinki. And I would like to convey my gratitude to that country via the ambassador that always supports the school and sustains the school. Finland cooperate on that with the Council of Europe, and so would like to convey my sincere gratitude to all those who take support to take decisions to support us. And that opens the session. Good morning. And thank you very much for such a nice introduction, Lena. It's a great pleasure for me to speak before you. I came here to Golitsyno last year, and I also joined you in Terioki, which is Zelenogorsk. And for me it's a unique opportunity, really. And normally I communicate with officials, and it's a totally different thing. And to meet young people coming from various regions of the Russian Federation, to meet with young professionals, it's really a unique opportunity for me. And I do appreciate it quite high. I have some slides. Unfortunately, those slides are in English. I prefer talking Russian. Perhaps it's not excellent Russian, but we will see if it works. And I think that I need to allot as much time as possible for Q&A, and therefore I'll try to be brief in my main presentation. Actually, I would like to tell you straight that I'm not an expert in civic education, civic enlightenment, or in school education. I studied in Tampere University and in the journalist department, but actually it was not my profession, since for nearly 40 years I've been working for the Ministry of Foreign Relations of Finland. And such events like your seminar are quite nice for me to visit, and acting as an expert, if I'm an expert, it could be so, but still, don't forget that I'm a citizen on Finland. So, and I would express my private views, and probably I'll still stick to the attitudes that the government of Finland pursues. Here is a slide, and it gives you some bullet points of my presentation. First, I would like to just deliberate on the idea of civic values. What are civic values? Speaking of civic enlightenment or education, what role do civic values play here, and what schools can do for that? What is the role of the schools? I have a lot of materials on that matter, but certainly I'm not going to read out all the materials. Rather, I'll leave quite some time for Q&A so that we could have discussion and interaction. So, as for civic values, for me, the starting point here is the human rights. So, civic values for me start from human rights. And the concept of human rights is quite sophisticated now. We can even say that it's a continuous topic to discuss. And after World War II, that particular matter was well promoted, starting from the Universal Declaration on Human Rights in 1948. That declaration contains quite a number of very important points. So if you read it, or personally I read it from time to time, or reread it from time to time. After that, we saw a great number of other legal instruments to secure human rights, and mostly those are agreements, international agreements and treaties on civil and political rights. And there is also another set of instruments, and economic and social rights that dates back to 1966. Then one can think of some other instruments, some other international agreements. On the elimination of racism, discrimination against women, the ban on torture, human child's rights, and migration rights, migration workers' rights, and finally it came as the Declaration on the Rights of people with disabilities. So it's the topic is quite sophisticated, and there is a number of international institutions which are supposed to be in control and supervise the adherence to all those concepts and agreements. On the other hand, one can say there is another perspective, another point of view, meaning how we can monitor the observance of human rights. And it depends on citizenship, on the domicile, and it depends also on some other sorts of circumstances. And it also depends if there is some property involved, tax duties, and other things. Till 2012, till my appointment to Moscow, I worked in Geneva and spent a lot of time working in the UN Human Rights Council. It was really a year-round work, full employment. Civic values, it's not exactly human rights, and one should really differentiate between them. And it's also about the commitments or responsibilities of people, because again it's an eternal topic, and it means how you can make a good citizen, a good person. And if so, it's not only about human rights, it's about responsibilities as well. I can do something, and I am responsible before other people for that. And I think that's quite an important topic. It's quite complex. It's not easy. since there is a great number of questions that are to be conveyed to the society in one way or another, to convey from the society to younger generations, so that to sustain continuity of the society and the integrity of it. Really, so that the integrity of the customs of the society are sustained. So the issue deals with some kind of an equilibrium between rights and responsibilities. And it's always, when we raise such points, it becomes quite difficult for individuals or just grassroots people. It's also difficult for society and social institutions. So that principle has long been articulated in various fashions. So one of the first definitions available in writing dates back to the times of the Bible, when Jesus said, I think is a pretty universal principle, when you apply your own rights, don't make harm to other people. That's really, it's very important, and it's pretty universal. If my understanding is correct, that principle showed the basis for a very interesting international project. It was not an organization, but a group of influential people sets up an interaction council which back in 1997 approved of a project, of a draft, new universal declaration of responsibilities of human beings. So that's kind of the declaration of human responsibilities. Again, it's done just to maintain that equilibrium between the Declaration on Human Rights and human responsibilities. And so the draft declaration is still on the table. The UN has not taken any material decisions, but still the draft is there, and perhaps It's not probably the exact language of the draft, but still, in the backdrop of those proposals, there are some resolutions as the one that reads, if we have a right for life, our responsibility is to value that life. If we have a right for freedom, our responsibility is to respect freedom of other people. And if we have a right for safety and security, then our responsibility is to create similar conditions for every man that would enable a person to enjoy personal safety and security, and so on and so forth, and quite a number of provisions like that. Should we have a right for the freedom of opinions, religion and faith, we are also obliged to respect religious principles and faith of other people. And that's exactly the equilibrium one is supposed to maintain and observe. It is to be promoted. And I think that those are the considerations and assumptions that could serve the focus of discussion for the civilized society. And I understand that it's not so easy. It's quite a complex thing. So, speaking of civic values, mostly we mean responsibilities of human beings, those of the citizens or members of a society. Values cannot make up a juridical concept or law concept. However, those laws can be drawn, and say criminal code is mostly exact manifestation and expressions or definition of the things that people are not supposed to do, and if they do, it specifies how that those people could be punished for that. Although it's not exactly the same considerations could serve the basis for civic values. And it's the legislation that would define and stipulates all those rights and provisions and boundaries. And certainly it would really stand for living in a civilized manner in a society. So, and here comes a question if school can play a role here, and what role it could be. So, in the English language, they normally use the concept of civic education, or just civics. In the USA, presumably. However, we should really see that the role of schools cannot be considered separately from the society, since every time when it comes to education, in the backdrop of those general value ideas such as values, some other aspects are to be accounted for as well. For instance, families, traditions, and the role of a family. Specifically facing today's challenges. You know that living here in Russia, and we know that living in Finland, we know that concepts are being devised for families, for parents to live under these circumstances, and it means that situation is quite different from the one we had 50 or 100 years ago.
How to take down the traditions, down the generations, how to take them to the younger people. Today, in the societies where the schools operate, they face numerous challenges, which are essentially different from the challenges mankind faced in the past. And the culture being such a multifaceted thing as it is, and the mass media explosion through the new information channels are challenging to both the parents, the students, and the educational establishments at large. It is inconceivable to propose that families are at rest when sending the kids to schools. We are far from the bucolic days of the long ago. And let me reiterate this. The school does have a role to play, an important role in the civil society and the civil education, or civic education for that matter. And when we wish to transpose to our students the civic values, we have to be conscious of that. So is civic education important? The answer is a resound yes. A lot has been done on that topic, on that subject, especially thanks to the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD. OECD is an organization that Russia wanted to join, but as a part of the Ukrainian crisis, the OECD decided to suspend negotiations with Russia about Russia's accession to the OECD. However, it is important. The OECD is not a standard organization it is not about rights or responsibilities of the member states, but rather about membership in the OECD permits the members to compare or to have the peer review between the equal in rights, which is the key concept. And one of the most important lines or fields of work for this organization is in education. The OECD works closely with other international organizations, including, but not limited to, the IEA, which is the International Association for the Evaluation of Educational Achievements. This provides very precise data and studies which are highly accurate on the influence and the development of educational establishments, and it is specifically important to promote civic education. Unfortunately, there's a lot of text here, and I don't want to strain you, but this IEA here conducts regular studies, international studies on civic participation and citizenship studies. These studies have now been conducted twice or three times, and the next round will be in 2016. In the center of attention is the question how the young people may assume a role of a citizen. And this is highly interesting. In particular, one of the interesting approaches, which is about the 7 measurements of involvement: political involvement, civic involvement, voters' turnout, interpersonal trust, institutional trust, tolerance, and political awareness. These concepts are quite sophisticated, but they have been studied, and certain quantifying methods have been elaborated to measure these. So they have yielded quite accurate and reliable data. I shall take but one example of a method of such study, such research. Questions are asked to high school students, and I'm not quite sure if how you would translate it into the Russian high school system, but the mean age according to these studies, is 15 years, the age of 15-year-olds, not too young, but also not quite adult, the adolescents, really, we're talking about. And there is this interesting, because the students are shown this leaflet. Leaflet of an electoral campaign. We, the citizens, and then there are different expressions, announcements, declarations, and let us not waste yet 4 years, vote for the Gold Party. And clearly everybody can say that this has been written by the Gold Party itself. But then there are 4 variants, 4 options which are not just an easy way of showing who has been authoring or who has authored this leaflet, but in a consistent way an attempt is made to show why and how the political language is channeled and how it can be and should be interpreted. And I think that many would understand that this is certainly a leaflet has not been authored by this party of silver, but rather by the party of gold. But what question would be proper or correct? Because the right answer is B. It has been prepared by the opposition to the Silver Party, which of course means the Party of Gold, but there's an evaluation of very conceptual things. Such questions are asked. Many interesting questions are asked. And their resulting material is quite ample in size and volume. So I will not go deeper into this, but this is just one example of such studies. And the conclusions coming from such measurements and studies of 2009 show these results were shown in participated by 38 countries, including Finland and the Russian Federation. And it appears that Russia, as a result, was in the middle, almost in the middle of this table. And I did not know and Finland was number 1 in that list. Well, of course, this is that the differences were not that sizable between countries, and the method is extremely sophisticated. One has to be an expert to master it. But, however, if you're interested, I can say a couple of words about this. I would like to conclude, but just a couple of considerations about Finland. We have a school educational agency, ministry, which provides the guidelines for the schools First of all, the first and foremost objective of all of these endeavors is to teach the students, and then there are four objectives: observation and analysis of the modern conditions and the circumstances, presenting well-sounded and considered opinions about what we should be aiming at in the future. Thirdly, the evaluation of the lifestyle and the prevailing tendencies from the standpoint of the future. And lastly, to make proper choices. Then there is the concept of gymnasium, the 3 last years of high school. It is common for all gymnasiums to promote active civics, civil standing, security and safety, sustained development, cultural identity, knowledge of cultures, technologies of the society, and the skills, communicative skills, and the mass media. So this is but a short list of the endeavors within the school establishments which are being undertaken in Finland. I know that in the Russian schools there are also specific disciplines, subjects, and even disciplines such as the social science or обществознание at some schools, and the grades at the school in Finland. There are also the subjects devoted to the composition of the society and the state, but it is especially important here that show that all actual fields of school education need to be pursued. What what is the composition of the scientific workers or the people in science. At the end, I would like to say that these studies have shown the importance of such endeavors, and the resulting properties developed with the young people are generally quite positive when the civics are taught or presented in a proper way at a school establishment. We will see how young people learn to behave, learn the social skills, and have a better knowledge how to live in this fast-changing and very complex world, how to behave responsibly and on the basis of mutual respect. So I will stop at this and let us pass on to the discussion. Colleagues, good morning. Let me ask you to comment or to ask questions to the ambassador of the Republic of Finland. I'm Artyom Filatov. I work in St. Petersburg at the Baltic Media Group. It is my pleasure to see you here, Mr. Ambassador, because for the past 2 years I have dealt quite actively with the Finnish matters. I have been to the schools in Helsinki, with the Swedish school in Helsinki, at the Russo-Finnish school, so I know a little bit as to how does this system operate. So I would like to say and to stop at the topic of a civic enlightenment, talking about the differences that exist between the Russian schools and the Finnish schools. The Finnish schools are municipal, mainly. They're not state. They're largely financed by the municipalities. And as far as I know, the Ministry of Education does not have direct influence, except for the national curriculum, over the schools. So the schools have certain autonomy, a certain degree of autonomy with respect to the ways of how the different subjects are taught. Do you believe, Mr. Ambassador, that such a degree of autonomy of the schools is conducive to the development of the civics among the Finnish population? Well, thank you for a very important question. Indeed, we have private schools as well, not just municipal, but not many. They're quite few in number, and most of the public schools, the state run schools, are indeed under the municipal administration. And the principle is and that the local schools are independent. However, it is more theoretical than practical, because where do the means come from, and how can you have large cities where there's a lot of entrepreneurship, business culture, many people, not just Helsinki, but also other big centers in Finland, and there are also small places, the towns and localities where the people are few, and the system was quite convolute. The municipalities have the rights, it is true, to collect taxes, but it is insufficient for the majority of municipalities. So I do not have a specific number, but I think that most of the money comes from the state. But you're quite right. The role of the state is quite limited at schools, and the influence of the state is also quite limited. One may say that the teachers at a schoolroom is a little bit of a dictator, is very independent. There are, of course, programs, instructions and guidelines, principles which need to be achieved or attained, but that can be done in different ways. And especially, this relates to the direct influence of the state bodies on the content of education. There are some general views and general considerations. The general textbooks, the curriculum, after all, that necessarily are centralized, but it is not the state bodies which stipulate the content of such textbooks or the ways that the information is presented at those. So I think that it is a matter of professional responsibility of the teachers and the experts in the particular subjects who publish the respective textbooks and guidelines. So, in theory, there's a very high degree of autonomy, but financially speaking, this is not the case, because it is impossible to attain such financial autonomy. So, education within the schools can be done differently. I would say that the most successful schools in Finland have the most creative teachers. And they use the existing liberties to the fullest extent. A question from Armenia. I have been in Finland. We participated in the church festivals, and I had a very good impression from Finland. But the importance of civic education is recognized by the political elite in both in Russia and in Armenia. In Armenia, for many years, the kidnapped, the handicapped, the invalids were largely not involved. So the persons with severe invalidity did not want and could not integrate them into the school system. I know that Finland has a well-developed system of integrating the disabled people into the system of education. Well, thank you for this very important question. With respect to the invalids, yes, indeed, the integration of the disabled persons is a major task. We are taking certain steps to make persons more, and we're trying to integrate them to the maximum extent possible.
About inclusive schools, certainly it depends upon the degree of disability, degree of how hard it may be. This degree of disability but society invests quite a lot into making it possible, because pretty often than not, if the disability is so bad that in every child with a disability has his personal like assistant or aide. It is not a teacher, it is not a tutor, it is maybe something in between, a person who has a university degree, so that he could help or she could help this child with a disability to be included, to take part. And certainly there are certain cases where this is absolutely excluded. This is where mostly, but the principle of integration say many things have happened during the last 15 to 20 years, and I would put it this way. We still have not yet reached the desired point. It's ongoing development, and a lot of attention. Many questions which deserve us to focus our attention on, and certainly we want to do it even better. Certainly this is a difficult question, and it will take quite a lot in terms of money to address it. Well, Anna, please. Thank you very much for your presentation. Anna from Yaroslavl State University. Thanks to Moscow School of Political Studies and Civic Enlightenment and the Center in Norway, we recently started a project on civic enlightenment in 4 regions of Russia. And first of all, I would like to request that the organizers of this event should invite His Excellency the Ambassador to attend a seminar for teachers to be held in autumn. I'm sure the teachers will find your presentation very interesting, and I hope the organizers will hear me. And the second point I wish to ask, Verglad Center that works under and with the support of the Council of Europe has developed methodological guidelines that is called Compass Compasita, which was presented to us at the seminars for teachers. Do Finnish schools follow these methodological guidelines? This has to do with civic enlightenment and civic upbringing. Well, I don't know. Indeed, the Norwegian Center, I've heard about it. It may be, well, in cooperation probably with the Finnish schools and organizations, and if we are a member of the Council of Europe, and since we sit in the Council of Europe, we know about it. This is where, as I told you, as to the research and studies, the most important thing is comparison. So that we could learn from one another. There are international centers, international programs that are very important. So, Yamal-Nenetsk Autonomous District, you now have the floor. Good morning, Sergei Yuri from Yamal-Nenetsky Autonomous District. My question is, it's generally thought that in the EU countries in the last several years, among civic values, they seek to teach tolerance to sexual minorities, to migrants. What role does this new approach play in civic values system in Finland? Yes, good. Yes, certainly. You can say that the world will change. For example, homosexuality. It was punished by criminal law till the early 1970s, probably, if I remember correctly. And at that time, we saw a protest which would gradually shift towards the rights of sexual minorities. And nowadays we can say that tolerance about this, it's part of our values. And this is something that is taught at schools, because this is where the role and responsibility of society is very important, because we do not know what is going on in families. And certainly the question still remains about human rights, irrespective of his sexuality. It does not mean at all. I know that among you we may have somebody who expresses in such a way that maybe you speak about propaganda among the minors, but this is not the case. This is the question to us about tolerance, about rights, about human rights. A different matter is migrants. Yes, we see more and more migrants. Finland, among the Nordic countries, may be, well, an exception, because traditionally we were very homogeneous. This is Finns alone. But you should remember that we have two official languages, Finnish and Swedish. And besides, in the north we have Sami languages that enjoy an official status. That's somewhat different. Swede-speaking Finn citizens are also Finnish, they're not Swedish. We were also homogeneous. They're just Finns who speak Swedish. We were a very homogeneous society, but gradually the number of migrants grew, including today, we are nearing about 70,000 Russian-speaking recent immigrants live in Switzerland. We have a pretty large group of Somalians and different immigrants whom we shall try to integrate into the Finnish society. Well, certainly it's a challenge, a great challenge. But especially in schools, this is also a matter of tolerance. We shall try to guarantee that the children of migrants should feel at home in Finland. I should not say that, really, that in Finland we have racism. This is a major problem, but we do have people like this too. But this is where the role of society, of schools, is very important too. It is particularly important, say, among, say, civic values that are taught at schools. Tolerance there is also taught so that everybody should understand that all people enjoy equal rights, irrespective of ethnic, cultural and religious background. Alexandra Shidova from Pskov region, thank you very much for your presentation, which may go into philosophical deliberations. We shall all have our own ideas about morality and law, values. We gave a number of signs such as turnout at the election, interpersonal trust, trust for institutions, levels of civic culture. All this looks like democracy. So the philosophical question, what does the regime determine? Will the level of political culture determine the regime? Will it be determined by the regime or elsewhere? And from you, as one of the most democratic countries, I would like to hear comparative analysis between Russia and Finland. Well, this is certainly a difficult question, but an important question. Comparisons are, it's very hard to make a comparison in many ways. As to Finland, I suppose we are an absolutely democratic country, and this democratic character of our country it's not something new that dawned upon us. This is a result of our development, say, since for many centuries. Because when in Finland, when we became a great duchy in the Russian Empire in 1809, Alexander I stated that he respects Finnish constitution and legislation. What is it, Finnish constitution and legislation in 1809? That was really Swedish constitution. Swedish is one of the full members of Sweden. As we in Sweden say, Sweden, Finland. At that time it was part and parcel of the country Sweden. And it was very developed system of education, legislation. And Sweden, even at that time, was, we can say, a constitutional monarchy. And then during the 19th century, well, we had an autonomy. And very important things took place. Certainly, sometime in mid-19th century, that was the time, so to say, of the birth of a nation state. Well, for example, Italy became Italy only 150 years ago. Especially in the times of Tsar Alexander II, those were the times when he was a liberal, and we began to gradually acquire the qualities of a state and of independent autonomous state, which was apart from the Russian Empire. This is where we had our own currency and also, I can put it this way, parliament. It was not a democratic parliament, but still it was in place. We had this traditional, very much along the Swedish traditions and lines, and as it was not a democratic in a sense of today's principles, how we understand it today, but still we had a certain democratic character. But most important, I think, was the development of civic society in many areas of our life. We had cooperatives of farmers at the end of the late 19th centuries. Trade unions became very influential, and we can say that civic enlightenment at that time, certainly we had schools that are very important. We had public libraries, such as civil libraries, they're very important. But we had thousands and thousands of all kinds of organizations who worked for civic enlightenment. And you see, we understand that was the development for several dozen years. Now it's been over a century and a half that this civic society developed. And I suppose if you compare Finland and Russia here, maybe the most important difference would be, I do not know, would be the condition of in which the civil society was developed. I don't suppose there's anything else I can say. A question from Armenia again. Thank you very much. Artak Vaskanyan. I represent Yerevan School of Political Studies. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for your presentation on fundamental human rights. I hope you would agree that among these rights, the things that are as well important are mechanisms where, say, NGOs and the state can ensure those rights. This is where I would like to ask you to tell us about these modern mechanisms which you think are needed for post-Soviet countries. Well, about human rights, I suppose in many ways people just are not in good shape in law enforcement organs and in security agencies, in army units. What about this ensuring them in those situations in your country? And what are the modern mechanisms in place to make these law enforcement organs accountable, subject to parliamentary control over security? I suppose this is where, in many ways, we speak about, well, in general, civil society as a whole. And certainly this kind of concept, what in England it's known as rule of law, which is justice, and it is very crucial. And this is where probably the concept I do not really know. I should have called it even before as a concept of trust in society. I suppose this is the key issue here. Finland is among those countries where the level of trust in society as a whole, well, trust for one another, trust to social institutions towards the state is very high. And this is where it may surprise you, but this is where the level of trust for police and to the army is very high too. They're respected. Why? Because they so behave and they do their work in such a way that they deserve this trust. So it's very, very hard to give some recommendations or whatever to somebody else, to another state, to another society, because certainly every country, every nation will necessarily need their own way. And let me put it this way, trust and justice and rules of behavior in society for respecting these rights. This is something that is key. Important questions where it's impossible to create them from scratch, and I will be quite open with you. I've worked with many countries, including India, Indonesia, with the exception of Europe and New York City. Apart from Europe, I also worked with New York City. We in Finland, we in Europe, in the West, we are expecting that change will take place very fast, overnight. Let's put it this way. So, let's have any more corruption. We should just overnight do away with corruption. Certainly it is very important to do away with corruption. But everybody knows that these expectations are impossible if you think it will happen overnight. So every country has her own way, and this is always means interaction between leaders, country leaders, and citizens, and a certain common understanding, shared understanding that we have certain rules that we all respect, and only if we work together we can develop our country further. This is a difficult and sometimes a slower process, slower way than we could hope for. There is no other approach that is possible. Colleague sitting next to me, to my left, please, you now have the floor. Lev Gordon from Izhevsk. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for your visit. You speak slowly but giving great thought. In Russia we have a number of jokes you may have heard about Estonians, about the Finns, about the Finnish and Ugarish languages. I wanted just 30 seconds introductory and 20 seconds for the question. I wanted to ask you a question as a person. There are three countries, United States, Russia and Finland. America, from the very start, was built along the values of passionate entrepreneurship. When they would conquer the Wild West, the most passionate people from Europe would emigrate there, and the culture, those who know it, a very high energy about creating all things new, both in business and social sphere, you name it. Yesterday we had somebody speaking from the United States. Russia people are all very hot and passionate, many revolutions, many upheavals, but at that, when we speak about our culture, very often you can hear that Russians are certainly ready in a difficult time to mobilize themselves and do something, but generally we are lazy people. And this is a very interesting Finnish experience in your culture, because the Finns, at least historically, are also not a very passionate nation as compared to us. We don't see a huge amount of inner energy. At that what happened to Nokia 10, 15 years ago, and this outburst in business and social progress in Finland, it's very noticeable from elsewhere in the world. What do you think? You've spoken about many things, but what do you think is the experience of Finland that Russia could borrow to overcome this conviction that in Russia we have this sort of laziness and indeed begin to progressively develop the country in both social and business spheres? Well, a difficult question. Indeed, we are Finnish and Finn and Ugarish nations. Maybe we look very much alike. Maybe with the exception of the Hungarians, because they are ethnically also somewhat very different from us. Yes, indeed. Well, the Finns maybe are slower. I know that we have like a impression that we make. And I suppose to a great extent it's also exact and to the point. And I would say that historically entrepreneurship in Finland has never been strong. We should say that many of our leading entrepreneurs in Finland, such as say who promote cutting-edge technology, they were not Finnish, they were Swedish or Swedish-speaking Finns, because this is also a study that shows that Finns and others are, Swedes are happier than very serious Finns and so on. And we had many entrepreneurs who hailed from Germany, Great Britain, Switzerland. For example, you know Karl Fazer, or Fazer as you call him, is actually Swiss. There's chocolate that we make, chocolate factory that used to belong to him. A very important part is our timber industry that was set up by Scottish emigre, by a rather German from Scotland, starting in the 1860s. In the reign of Alexander II, when liberal economic policy was pursued in the Russian Empire by the government.
And it is true that that the new Nokia is new now, and because this is so Nokia is located just in the middle of Finland, so he finished school there, and so my first employer was Nokia company. So not Nokia that we're talking about, but another Nokia, so which was involved in timber and paper and pulp industry, and so that was my first employer, different Nokia. And starting from the 80s, the 90s, so there was just a wave, we could observe this big wave of entrepreneurship in Finland. And today, let's say, after, so then Nokia is on decline, and so Nokia now is facing a lot of difficulties and economic problems. But after Nokia had fallen, and we so now just we're talking about startups against the background of those big companies, and we're attempting to create good business conditions for young businessmen who want to do something new, to make a breakthrough. And here, so the situation is not playing out the way it should be, but still, so we've learned a lot of very important lessons, and so we are moving forward. So what we need, the state should not be the leader in open terms, open conditions of the market. So the state should not be at the pinnacle, should not be the biggest, institution in the market. So then the market should be, the state should be a facilitator, so it should be kind of a go-between. So the state should play the role of a helper, of a supporter, and so that to get the small businesses going, to get the ball rolling, and so to simplify this, and thus create the necessary social, economic values. So that's a new wave. So that's when we look at the state differently. And it's a new way of development of Finland. No. That's it. The time is up. Our time is up, unfortunately, and so always I'm very sorry just to stop the sessions, especially when we have such a wonderful speaker, but we need to say that Finland is paying a great deal of attention to the work of our school. And so this is can be explained easily because we're dealing with the country that reached civil education, and it's a big success story from the viewpoint of civil education. And Finland supports our school and understands our work very well. And so the Finnish ambassadors so come to our seminars regularly, and so maybe even so the seminar one day will be held in Finland. So we have lots of reasons to give our expert a round of applause. Half an hour break.